Hello and welcome to Matrix Live. My guest today is Dave. Dave is a software engineer at Element, and today we're going to talk about a topic that is not necessarily the most exciting one in terms of engineering, but in terms of feature. People have been wanting that for a long time. We're going to talk about Mark as Unread. To give you some context, so Mark as Unread is a feature that people have been asking for a very long time, and there was in fact a MSc open for years now, MSC 2867, and several clients already implement that, Fluffy Chat, Shieldy Chats, Beeper, and probably others actually. So there used to be that feature in Element iOS 2, but not exactly the one we are going to talk about today. So in the legacy version or the regular version of Element iOS, I would say, you could mark a feature as unread and it's going to be disabled from the app because it's not using the new mechanism, new, and it's going to be added to Element X iOS. Dave, is that feature going to come to Element Web?
Yes, so we've just been working on this for Element Web actually, because lots of people want it. I think we were debating how to do this and what MSC to use, given that this MSC already has quite a bit of adoption. Yeah, we decided we might as well just use that one. So yeah, we've been working on that for Element Web, and the PR is working its way through the machine now.
So this is a case of the ecosystem driving Matrix in a specific direction and Element following along for once.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's pretty much the case. Yeah, that's literally because it got adoption outside of the Element ecosystem, or in the Matrix ecosystem, I guess. Really, we decided that there was absolutely no reason to do something else. It's far better to follow along and use the thing that was already there. So yeah.
Right. So I mentioned a bit earlier that Element iOS, the regular app, had that feature and decided to remove it because it's not synchronizing the mark as unread across clients. And now it's going to support that. This is what this MSC is about, like marking a room as unread, and all the clients that support it are going to flag that as unread. Can you tell us a bit more about how it works?
Yes. So I think in the legacy slash current iOS app, it didn't sync at all. It was
Mhm.
entirely local to the client. Uh, so if you'd marked as a room as unread on the legacy iOS app, it wouldn't have shown as unread on Shieldy Chat or any of the other ones that implemented it, which is kind of confusing.
Mm.
But that would be even more confusing if your mark as unread wasn't synced between your different element clients. So to avoid confusing people, we kind of were in two minds as to whether to you take a feature away from people that might be using it as it is, or avoid confusing the people that would go try and use it on the legacy app and wonder why it wasn't syncing with web. Um, and eventually, we decided that removing it was the lesser of two evils. So yes, we've done that, and it now we'll use this MSC to write the rooms that you've marked as unread back to the server, so it will sync between Element X on iOS and Android and web, and any other client that implements the same MSC.
Okay, so it's going to mark the room as unread just for me because I'm the one who is going to flag the room as unread. How does it work? Yeah, I suppose it can't be a state event if it's just for me.
Yeah, that's right. So we actually have something called account data, or in this case, room account data, where account data is data that is specific to your account. So you'll remember anything there that, like, I was going to use push rules as an example, which is actually not a very good example, which is your notification settings and things like that. Things that you whether you think things that settings for your client, what you want to be notified about. Um, Room account data is slightly different to that, and well, actually, it's basically the same. It's just specific to a room, so you're basically making your own notes about that room. You can think of it like that. So you're literally just putting a note in that is specific to you and will only get synced to your other devices, that you want that room to be considered unread, and nobody else will see that.
Okay, so it's stored on the server side, and my several clients can all fetch that data and update that data.
Yes.
Is the Rubicon data end-to-end encrypted?
No, no reason why it couldn't be. It's just opaque events, just like anything else. So if you wanted to add encryption on, you could do, but it's not for this. Yeah, for no particular reason other than it didn't seem particularly necessary.
All right, makes sense. Is it the most technically clean option for that feature for marking a room as unread?
Yeah, so I mean, to talk about the MSC itself,
Hmm.
it goes into discussing a few alternatives. And really, what you might want is read receipts that can be set to any point in the past. So you could actually reverse a read receipt up
Hmm.
the room and say, oh, and actually, no, I haven't read this message down here. I've only read up to this bit here. Um, and that is arguably the technically cleanest option because it uses all the same mechanisms. So use the read receipts in the same way, and you would just get a read receipt in the same way as you always have, and the server could work out from that that you've now not read a message. Um, but yeah, argue it's complicated to implement for a start. The UI obviously is very complex as well because how does a user indicate that they've not read a particular message or that they've only read up to a point? You wouldn't really expect that to necessarily happen. It's not like it works in email where you just say, this message I want to consider unread. There's not it's not marking a single message unread isn't quite the same analog. Um, so it's complicated in terms of both technical implementation and the users understanding it, which I think is why somebody eventually suggested this MSC and said, look, why not? Why don't we just do it very simply and have a flag that says we consider this room to be unread? Um, so I think it's not letting good be the enemy of, or perfect be the enemy of good, rather.
Right, it's a rather nuclear option in the sense that you say the whole room is in red and you are storing that in a very simple fashion. So if it's not the well, not the cleanest option, but it's simple enough, was it a matter of being pragmatic to get the feature delivered to the user base, even if it's not the most perfectly technically correct way to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say pragmatism, although to be honest, I'm not entirely convinced that it's not the best option, really, because I honestly would argue that maybe it reflects best what the user actually wants out of the feature. Um, that I don't think it's entirely clear that we do want read receipts that really do go backwards. Um, Maybe we want it for something else, but I'm not sure we necessarily want it for this.
Hmm. One thing so when you mention red receipt, I've got a bit goosebumps because it tells me threads and stuck notifications. Is it going to be an issue with that feature?
For this, it shouldn't. Well, one of the downsides of this is that it doesn't support for threads because the MSC is actually quite old, and I don't think threads barely even existed at the point the MSC was written. So yeah, it doesn't. You can't marking a thread as unread is not included in this. You can only mark a room as unread. That said, it's not exactly difficult to see how you would extend the MSC to support that. It wouldn't be. I don't think it would be terribly complicated. So we could do that. But yeah, with the other advantages that this, getting back to stuck notifications, this doesn't really interfere with read receipts at all. So it steers entirely clear of any um, receipts or notification processing that might cause stuck unreads, and it will only ever cause a specific type of dot on the room. So that's another advantage then that's fairly safe in that regard.
All right. Talking about clients not supporting specific features, what if I use another client that doesn't support that feature? How is it going to interact? Like, for example, let's say I'm going to use ElementX iOS or Fluffy Chat. I mark room as unread, and I'm using, say, Element Web, which doesn't support the feature yet. How is it going to work or not work for me?
Yes. So the answer to that is that when you view the room in a client that doesn't support markers unread, uh, the markers unread badge will just stay on whichever clients do support it. So if you set it on, say, element X iOS, and then you go and read the same room in web. In web, it will look like you've read that room and you're all cut up, but you'll go back to element X iOS and you'll still have the badge on the room, which might be a bit confusing for a little bit. But yeah, until once all clients support it, that will be fine.
All right. And let's say I'm a brilliant engineer. I know that proper reversible read receipts are definitely the solution I need. And on top of that, I'm working with a designer who has come up with a perfectly sensible solution for me to have a proper UX to mark the room unread until a certain message or to support threads specifically. Um, how can I make that happen in Matrix? Is there one way for me to contribute?
Yes. So yeah, you can do exactly what I think it was Boo Boo did in this case all those years ago, which is simply to go to the Matrix spec proposals repository on GitHub, and you can write an MSC, which does not need to be complicated at all. We've got there's a template there which has lots of sections, but really the start of an MSC could be, I want this thing. This is why I want it. This is what it should do. This is why it will make Matrix better in general, and these are potential problems with it. And yeah, you can follow the template for, well, in fact, you can follow the template for markers unread, because that was a fairly simple and well put together MSC. So yeah, that is exactly what one might do if you wanted to do that and you had a great idea of how to do this. Yeah, just go to the GitHub repository.
Okay, so basically start with a spec and then continue with an implementation. And once I proved that it works, I can nag the spec core team and say, "Hey, I have something ready. You need to review
Yes.
that."
Yes, indeed. After some way down the road, you'll you eventually get to implementing this yourself, and then because we all MSCs require an implementation before they're merged, and then they require a review, and yeah, it gets ticks from everybody in the spec core team, and once it does, then it's in the spec.
Right, and the process is quite important. This is one of the things. Well, I'm a bit biased towards Matrix, but one of the things I really like in the Matrix development methodology, I would say, is that everything needs to go through the spec. So if I want to have a different, maybe more complete or just different really way to implement reversible read receipts, I need to make sure it doesn't clash with existing MSCs. So going through the spec means I can start with the wish list, then the implementation, and then get feedback from people who are going to tell me, oh, be careful, this is going to cause problems if you don't pay attention to this and this and that. All right, enough for the spec. Is there anything we forgot to cover?
I don't believe so. Yeah, that's. Well, I don't know when. I suppose when it will be out is another question. We're hoping to get this out on both Element X and Element Web in the next release cycle, I think. So that will be the release candidate that happens in about 2 weeks' time. So then a week after that, that is currently what we're aiming for.
Okay, so beginning of April.
Yeah, somewhere around
Okay.
there. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Dave, and I see you around Matrix Live. See
Thank
you.
you.